Oh, good, great. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So, I wanted to welcome you all to Joining Forces, which is also the name of our first panel here. And so, my name is Woods Irvin. I use they, them pronouns. I am an organizer with the San Francisco jail fight, as well as a staff member at Transgender, Genderqueer, Intersex Justice Project, and I organize with critical resistance. So I fight policing, imprisonment, jails all day, every day. Okay, so basically, we're gonna get into a little bit. The purpose of this particular panel is to have a conversation with organizers across San Francisco who are fighting on many fronts against policing, courts, the jails, in order to essentially build pressure against the investment in those different areas. And clearly this convening the target is to make sure that there is no new jail in San Francisco, but we realize that part of that is the prison industrial complex is made of interrelated parts, and so in order to actually be able to make sure that there is no jail in San Francisco, we need to be organizing alongside people who are fighting against policing, people who are fighting against the courts, etc. So given that we're at this particular point with the fight now, where we can and do a little bit more of this work, I think it's an important time to have this conversation. So I am going to take a moment to introduce each of my co-panelists here, and then we'll get a little bit more deeply into it. So first we have Jose Bernal, who is the shelter program manager at Hospitality House, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the fight against gang injunctions in San Francisco. We have Liz Krobach, who is a member of the Do No Harm Coalition, and she's going to talk a little bit about their Justice Survey project and about healthcare workers organizing against policing as a public health issue. We also have Gloria Esteban Martinez, who's a member organizer at Causa Justa Just Cause, who's going to talk about immigrant justice organizing in San Francisco. We have, to represent the Justice in Honor for Luis Gongora Pat, Adriana Camarena is going to be joining us as soon as she can to talk about families impacted by police murders and their Charge or Resign campaign. And unfortunately, Janetta Johnson, who's the executive director of TGI Justice Project, cannot be with us today. She's not feeling well. So I will do my best to also incorporate the fierce notes that she gave me. Just to sort of lay some of the groundwork before we get into the different struggles. One of the things that we want to drive home today is that the prison industrial complex is not broken. So we have to work towards these different abolitionist reforms in different areas because of the shifting nature of the PIC in order to shrink it as a whole. And we also have to be and I think this lovely wall demonstrates as well, as we're shrinking the repressive powers of policing, or the resources that are going to jail expansion, or the collaborations between ICE and police, or the ways in which policing is taking over or bleeding into our healthcare systems. We also have to think about where we want to pivot those, how we want to pivot those resources towards life-giving, life-giving institutions, relationships in our communities. And so, in order to more effectively stop one of these things, we have to constantly be in relationship and conversation and support each other to make this go. I'm going to talk first a little bit about give a synopsis of our fight against the jail in San Francisco before I pass it off to you all. So there, I think we took up the fight briefly, in around 2013, and there was a proposal on the table to build a new jail in San Francisco, based on, that came out of the capital plan, which is this, basically the controller's office made a decision about numbers in the jail system in San Francisco and projected that by 2020 we're gonna need a new jail. And so, essentially through backdoor number crunching, a jail plan came to fruition. As soon as we got wind of it, we started fighting against it. And just to keep this brief, our first win was to push the Board of Supervisors to declare that the current jail was seismically unsafe, and that they needed to start moving people out of the jail as soon as possible, including the Hall of Justice, and that happened in 2014. Then the next place we pivoted towards was that every time there is new construction in San Francisco, an environmental impact report has to be, an environmental impact review process has to be gone through. And this is a place in which community members can intervene in these state-based projects. And so we mobilized to interrupt the environmental impact review process, effectively raising enough hell to shut down the first meeting and start to try and get some leeway with the Board of Supervisors. So while they still did move forward with applying for funds, because we were mobilizing the context of, at the state level, there were prison funds going towards jail construction, and San Francisco basically based their decision on whether or not they were going to get a loan from the state in order to build the jail. And they applied. They got the go-ahead to apply in the middle of 2015. We mobilized to the state level to shut that meeting down. And then at the end of 2015, in November, the pressure that we've been putting on the supervisors moved on them enough to have a hearing on what we had been saying, which is that what we actually want the millions of dollars that they were going to spend on this jail to go to were alternatives. And so we had an alternatives hearing in November of 2015 to really, really pivot their thinking around the jail and what could actually take place that would benefit our communities. By the end of 2015, December, we had, this was like the sort of final countdown And the 2nd of December, there was a hearing about accepting the money from the state level for the jail. And we shut that meeting down so that we wanted it to go to the full board. And when we, the week later in December 2015, the full board, we pressured them to make a decision to not build a new jail. So some of the ways in which we were able to defeat this were there were multiple potential concessions along the way. Having a smaller jail, having it be with fewer beds, having it be a mental health jail, and we, at every turn, we stood up and we said, no, we don't want a new jail. We don't want a jail in San Francisco at all. I think that we also were able to, in this, as I was hearkening to at the beginning, draw connections between policing. So mind you, in 2015, this is when Black Lives Matter was coming, really, really breaking forth in the national consciousness. Also, this is when the concern, like the concerns around the impacts of violence against trans people, where it was also occurring at the national level, which that was a voice that TGIJP brought to the fight. I know that we're going to be talking a little bit about the impacts of policing and police killings in San Francisco, and it's of note that during those first 2 weeks in December, that is also when Mario Woods was killed by San Francisco Police Department. And we were able to draw the connections between their policing, the jails, the ways in which they were essentially pushing resources into a mental health jail when